And welcome to the 700 Club Canada, our friend Kevin Makins. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for coming to my place. I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, you've got a great book coming out now, and it's dropping all the way around right now. Why would anyone go to church? So, you know, I want to ask the question, hey, what made you write it?
Well, what made me write it was that church is weird. And, it's this fascinating thing that nothing
Now
about
you
church...
got to explain that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about church being weird. Don't turn it off yet. Don't turn it off. Just nothing about church really makes sense. Like, you can find better music than what you play at church, right? You go to a concert, you got better music. You can see better speakers if you watch a TED Talk. Like, no offense to your pastor, but she's not that great. You know, there's better options out there. There's better places to get to know people who are just like you. You can go to a club, you can get in a group chat or go on some Facebook group. So despite the fact that in so many ways, church is kind of unimpressive and weird and difficult, people have kept doing it for 2,000 years. They've continued to gather. And so 10 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, when I was just sprightly, we had a group of people that were asking this question: what is church? What does church mean? What does it look like? Why should we be a part of it? And as we kept asking those questions, they were coming to church for different reasons. And so I started gathering stories in those first couple of years and realized, there's a lot of reasons that we are a part of the church that truly matter, but they're not always the ones that we talk about. And so that eventually evolved into the book that is now releasing in June 16th.
You know, Kevin, you're in a unique position. Being the founding pastor of Eucharist, you've seen really a mix of generations come together. And in being in Hamilton, Ontario, in Steeltown, I mean, you're in a place where revival has hit and it has really caused the church to grow. But there's been a bit of a decline. And you write something in your book. You said, you don't go to church for cool. There's no such thing as a cool church. Explain that a bit to us.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of going to church because of status or because it's really cool and interesting, it just isn't that cool. What makes church so interesting are these things that are distinctly uncool, like loving your neighbor. Not really cool. Loving your enemy, especially not cool. Sitting in a space with people who are politically in different camps, who would lean different ways on different issues. That's not cool, but it is beautiful. And so, we're in this time right now where the church is scattered in this COVID moment. We're not gathering together. And when we think back on church and what it is, it's easy to remember all the things that we can't do right now. It's easy to think, oh, church is being in a building, hearing a sermon, singing songs together, and that's all great. But there are all these other things about church that we don't want to forget. That church is about sitting with strangers and making small talk and getting to know each other. And church is that 30 minutes after a service when you linger around and you hang out and you talk with people you would never otherwise rub shoulders with. That's church. Being close enough to somebody that they're going to hurt you or you're going to hurt them, just by accident, because that's what life is like. And learning to forgive each other and learning to heal relationships. Mm-hmm. That's church. That's what Jesus is trying to shape his family like. And so there are so many things about church that are not metrics of what's cool or what's hip, but they are what really changes the world and what changes us. And so the book, I really want to pull out those kind of subversive, hidden things that are so great about church and bring those to the surface so that we can name what the church is, celebrate it. And also, as we look ahead now in this age of church scattered and church decline and the church in COVID, that we can start looking at what really is so special about the church and how in this new age that we're entering into, can we continue to live out the best of the church together.
And Kevin, what I really appreciate when you look at the generation that you're reaching into and the way you communicate things, what you're really talking about is how Jesus reconciles and really what community is and how the Holy Spirit operates in that. Talk to us a little bit about that, why this generation especially, what it's looking for from church and what church means to this generation.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things that people are looking for. And often they don't think even to look at the church, which is funny. Everyone I know that isn't in the church most of them would say that they're spiritual people, and most of them would say that they want to be a part of community. But it seems like the church, which should be a place of spiritual community, has often just not been an answer for that. And so I think we've got to start asking, how do we make the church a place that people can enter into when they don't know if they want to go to church or be a part of the church, where they don't know what they believe, they don't know what they think yet. But we can say, listen, that's all okay. Come into this place where people together as a community are trying to live out a different way to be human. And as you engage in that and participate in that, you're going to find the answer to a lot of other questions that you've been asking that maybe you wouldn't have expected to find in this kind of community.
Why is it important for this generation to be rooted in a faith community?
Yeah, it's more important than ever because we, in so many ways, are limitless and unrooted. So we can listen to any podcast anytime we want. We can watch any movie, talk to anyone, anywhere on earth. And so we have all this limitlessness, but limitation's good for us. Being married is good for us. We learn to love one person. Living in a neighborhood is good for us because we learn to connect with these particular people. And so in an age where everything is so infinite and so expanding, there's something deeply countercultural about belonging to a few particular people in a particular place. And that gives us a totally different way to experience God from everything that we find online. And that, I think, is really vital, especially for those of us who now live so much of our life online and in the void. It's so important to find concrete ways to let this land in flesh and blood, everyday ways.
You're a great voice in this nation, and I really believe a rising voice as well. How could we get a hold of Why Would Anyone Go to Church?
You can get the book through my website. If you go to kevinmakins.com, there'll be a page there for the book. You can also get it on Amazon or anywhere you buy books, any bookstore, any place that's selling them. You can grab a copy of the book, and I'd love it if you did.
Well, I'm getting my copy, and I really appreciate your sense of humor, but I appreciate the depth of what you bring and what you're sharing right now. And my friend, I look forward to talking to you and catching up again. We'll talk.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Well,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll see you a bit later. Well, when we look at what Kevin is doing, where he is literally communicating hope, and that's what Nada found as well. Take a look.